I'm seeing that AI for an agent today who got just clouded her brain with all of this. I wrote down keywords and I could go into ChatGPT or Grok and I could say, here's what I'm thinking I want to do. Break it all down for me and the different players that would be. What's the type of buildings that I want to go after? I'm in the Charlotte area. Where are they even at? And who would be the likely partners like it? Is it doctors that just have extra money, things like that, that are investors just looking for a partnership kind of thing? And I would have it educate me. I don't need to know it all initially, but if I'm proactive enough to utilize AI to help me define it, and then maybe I find somebody like a you who would say, yeah, this looks good, or an attorney that this is something that they work with all the time. Who would kind of be my partner to help me besides AI to make sure that I'm on the right direction?
Well, you kind of answered your own question there. So, and yes, you touched on a very new tool that I didn't have back then, and that opens up another, whole new world of AI, right? On a separate company on the management side, my partner uses AI, in crazy ways, which I'll get into later. But speaking to your point, yes, what's good now is if you know how to ask the right questions,
Right.
AI will answer that and kind of put down an outline. And as you stated, you want to be able to then probably find and align yourself with an individual who knows what they're doing.
Right.
So, for example, let me bring it back to when I first started developing real estate, right? It was 2004. Now, 2004, I didn't know anything about developing real estate.
Sure.
I have a real estate company. I own all these apartment buildings. I own office. I own retail. That's what I mainly sell to my clients. We manage it. And so then I was approached by a developer. Now, the developer had the smarts, didn't really have the money. And at the time, I didn't realize, oh, okay, you have this thing called net worth because you have assets, you have equity, you have businesses. And so he aligned with me and I got my education and all the not only in what you're looking at from acquiring something and its future value and why you'd want to acquire it and take the risk. And so there's that alignment piece that you touched on once you kind of get the education from, say, from an AI. Right now, you want to be careful about AI because you also want to back up all of that information now in fact,
Source.
with an actual attorney. And you also want to make sure that those same laws apply to your municipality, to your area.
Right. Your
It could be
zoning.
something as like, hey, there's no fourplexes in that area. And you're right. And again, I'm not even promoting fourplexes these days, but that was just what kind of launched me in 1998 into like
Uh-huh.
60 unit, 80 unit, 100 unit buildings, and then later into developing and other things like that. And so to your point, you can use AI to ask those different questions and then kind of find other players. A key piece that we now have is we have the internet on steroids, right? We have Zoom, we have the ability to network remotely, and we are now on an international playing field. So
Yeah.
like, when I was in the early 2000s, when I was, going into different states and transacting business there or owning property there, that the internet still hadn't even evolved. If you probably recall, our phones were all, they didn't have a PDA, they were all separate devices. Well, now, we connected over LinkedIn. I have clients that, I've connected with from China, from Hong Kong, from
Yep.
Dubai. And, it's a much, and business is transacted very differently now, especially on apartment units, like apartment built, like on single family homes, you might get a call saying, hey, I want to show your house, your listing on a Saturday at 10 a.m., right? On apartment buildings, you don't get that. You do a lot of the legwork before without even having to look at the property because you're just going to underwrite the income, the expenses. From that, it's going to drive what the value is. So you can go, hey, their asking price is correct or it's overpriced. And you just adjust your negotiations accordingly. Well, now it's even crazier because you could do a lot of that just from without ever leaving your office or your home.
Right.
Like I had the privilege of like buying the office complex that was like one exit away from my house in 2000. So even though I can work from my home, I still like to come to the office and so I can get into that mindset of working, right? But you don't even need to have an office these days. You could just be from an iPad, right?
Yeah.
So those are
Uh,
different things you can do to connect. And then the other great thing too is that you could do so much research on an individual if all you have is their mobile number.
Right.
That, one of the things I'll teach my real estate agents, for example, is that, especially the female agents, hey, make sure you do your due diligence on who's calling you, because you might just get
Right.
somebody calling you up who has no intention or isn't even qualified to buy a house.
Yep.
They have nefarious means and they're just telling you, hey, I'd like to see the place at, 9 p.m. tonight. Is that
Yeah.
possible? All right. But you could run an entire background on a mobile number or an email if it's something that's been seasoned for some time. Now, if it's something that just somebody like got on a burner phone or
Then
an
I'm
email
not
was
showing you.
created, and that's one of those like red flags going, hey, this email or this number doesn't even have any history and it's very suspicious. So these are different things you could use to your advantage. But they're those same things that you would use just for some simple thing like selling a house and vetting out your buyer or your client are the same due diligence you can use to figure out some of these larger and larger transactions. So, like to the real estate audience, getting yourself educated to local tax laws, federal tax laws, city tax laws, and the interest rates, the financing options. Those
I
are all
think
different things
I
that kind
think
of
today's market though, I don't need to know that in depth. I don't want them to get lost on that because I can go right to
no,
ChatGPT
no,
and
you're right.
say,
You're absolutely
"Hey,
right.
here's the zoning, here's the territory, here's my situation. What are my zoning restrictions that I need to pay for? What are all my things that's going to be important for this piece? I don't have to be as educated. I'll get educated because I can have it do it. And the important thing, just like you said a minute ago, is I got to know my source,
Yeah.
or I can feed it the website that is the source.
Yes. And well, back before we had ChatGPT, and yes, you should absolutely do those things now. It wasn't so much, if you recall the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
Just finding, good people to align with, whether the CPA or an attorney or
Mm-hmm.
property management company, are all different things that, just as a simple real estate agent needing to do a transaction wants to do. And as they get to know those things, whether they ask ChatGPT, as they go through the practice of implementing what they learned from an individual or from ChatGPT, they're gonna they're gonna learn nuances like, okay,
Yes.
this is what was the outline, but here's where I can deviate slightly to get around a problem. And then suddenly just finding those little niches. So, to your point, when you're asking ChatGPT these questions, look for those niches and then be quick to educate, but also try to implement and then still always ask lots of questions, right? Because there's
Yeah.
always going to be nuances to how something is supposed to be done and different ways you can do it more efficiently. And if that little niche is what could set you apart as an agent to do more transactions and do more